CBS News color coverage of the flight of Apollo 10 continues. Here again is Walter Cronkite.
The United States at this moment has 2 manned spacecraft circling the moon. The lunar module, which is now on a path which will take it to within 10 miles of the moon's surface at 5:32 Eastern Daylight Time, or approximately 25 minutes from now, and the command module hovering overhead at 69 miles an hour, keeping a close eye on the progress of the lunar module as Tom Stafford and Eugene Cernan plunge down there toward that closest look of the moon that man will yet have had. They at one point will be separated by 420 miles. A little earlier, Leo was talking about the separation in nautical miles, the statute miles, the miles we use here generally on Earth. It'll be 420 miles. That takes place about 15 minutes before the lunar module stages. And that is when the lunar module separates and the ascent stage with the 2 astronauts aboard leaves the descent stage to rendezvous again with the command module. That staging takes place at 7:33 this evening, Eastern Daylight Time. It's now just 3 minutes and 45 seconds before that acquisition of signal again, and the spacecraft are in touch with the ground. It is be expected at that time that we will get confirmation, hopefully we will get confirmation, that the descent orbit burn took place on schedule at 4:35 our time, or 35 minutes ago. That was the burn on the far side of the moon that would have slowed the lunar module so that it drops down to that point just 10 miles above the moon's surface, which, as we have said before, occurs at 5:32, and it's now 5:10 Eastern Daylight Time. With me here is our guest science fictionist, perhaps the world's most distinguished one, I would say, Arthur C. Clarke. I give you that accolade that has been bestowed by a lot of others before me, so I'm just being a good reporter and not flattering you with that, I don't think.
Thank you, Walter.
What so far in these 4 days of flight have surprised you most, would you say?
Well, I think the smoothness with which everything has gone, even this minor trouble, I hope it's minor trouble, with the depressuring of the tunnel between the 2 spacecraft. This, I hope, will not be serious, but it does indicate they were very wise in planning to do this type of intermediate operation, not attempting to land on this mission. I'm sure that everyone is very happy they are doing this and not going down to the moon on this trip.
Yes, there was some discussion, you know, earlier in the Manned Space Center, and I think even more particularly among laymen, lay experts on moon flight, saying, why go with this flight? Why not go ahead and land once you're 10 miles above the moon? Well, as we know, there's some very good reasons for that. One of the reasons being that they do not have to commit that radar and the full landing system on this flight. They are a little bit lighter. They can go down to that stage with less fuel aboard, just the amount of fuel it takes to get back from 50,000 feet, and that's quite a considerable reduction because those first few feet off are even more difficult than the latter stages, I take it. Arthur, do any of the troubles they've had resemble anything that you've foreseen in your science fiction in the past?
Well, in a way, yes. It occurred to me that if they have trouble redocking, we might have this situation which I've often described in fiction when men have got to cross space without a spacesuit, going from one spacecraft to another, which is theoretically possible, but I sincerely hope they don't have to try it on this mission or any future missions. One day someone will have to do this.
They're prepared, of course, for a small crossing. One man carries a 4 our supply of oxygen and a full pressurization, so all this equipment in a portable life support system. The other has a 30-minute supply of oxygen, and they both have spacesuits, which would make it possible for them to transfer from one spacecraft to the other if they could not dock. It would be mighty tricky, and nobody would like to try it. But it's part of the thing that they were testing. Rusty Schweikert was testing on Apollo 9. Each of these phases has been tested as we go along. Of course, the lunar module is getting its first test in moon environment right on this flight, and only its second test in space. We're supposed to get that acquisition of signal in about 15 seconds from now, and we'll keep tuned in here. We do have mission control piped into us, and you will hear it just as soon as we do when we get any word from mission control. They are silent at the moment, waiting for that acquisition of signal. The first spacecraft to report in will be the command module. It's a little bit ahead of the lunar module now, and we will hear first from it.
Over. Right, reading 5-5, Charlie Brown.
And there they have Charlie Brown.
Houston, Charlie Brown, over. Roger, reading 5-5, Charlie Brown, over. Houston, Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown, Houston, I'm reading 5-5.
Apparently John Young and Charlie Brown is not receiving Houston yet. He keeps calling them, but...
Houston, Charlie Brown, over. Houston, Charlie Brown, how do you read on that gate, over?
Houston's trying to raise Charlie Brown, although...
All locked up on them, Tom, but I just don't read them. Charlie Brown, Houston, over. Roger, read your last clear. Snoopy was go for DOI. Roger, great, sounds great, we copy.
Charlie Brown reports, John Young reports that the lunar module did perform its burn to drop into the low point.
He'll fill you in when he gets to you, but at 6 miles, he was doing 65 feet a second. On my 6 miles from me, he was doing 65 feet a second. At 3.8 miles, he was doing 73 feet a second. I think that confirms his burn.
In other words, John Young is saying that according to his radar information, computer information...
They're down there, rocks, mumbling about the boulders and things right now. Roger, Charlie Brown. I saw it rise.
Saying the lunar module has slowed down.
They're looking up at the horizon now. Roger.
We should be hearing shortly directly from the lunar module, from Snoopy. This simulation shows what the men in the spacecraft are seeing at this point. They are seeing the Earth rising, it would appear, over the horizon of the moon.
Hello, Houston, Houston, this is Snoopy. Right, Snoop, go ahead. We is down among them, Charlie. Roger, I hear you're weaving your way up the freeway. Can you give me a post-burn report, over? Yeah, as soon as I get my breath. Okay, our burn was on time. Our residuals were -0.1, -0.3, and -0.5, and that was the residuals from the dip burn. We did not null anything out. We're at 61.2 by 9.2, and the AX has us at an 8.6. Roger, Snoopy. We copy all the residuals, and it looks like we're all go. Your dips is looking good, and it's go. Over.
So his orbit gives him a 9.2 nautical mile.
We just saw Earth rise, and it's got to be magnificent. Right, we copy.
Right, you also tell Jack Smith that there's enough boulders around here to fill up Galveston Bay, too.
He's copying, Tom.
Their orbit.
The only trouble is, we're stripping lots of film for them. Spacecraft's looking good, and there are no problems, Charlie, except it'd be nice to be around here more often.
Roger, we copy. You're looking. All your systems are looking good to us. Did you get your dip's pressure back? Over.
Dips is the
Negative, but the dip burn was smoothed out very well when we throttled up.
Roger, we got a good.
Dips is a descent propulsion system.
The dips is go for phasing.
Dips is go for staging for their separation, which will come on their next orbit of the moon at about this point, a little later, about 2 hours from now. Their orbit, according to their computer readout, which they just gave to the ground, would put them 11 miles above the moon's surface, a little bit higher than had been planned, which would mean they did not break quite as much, by a few feet per second, as they had planned. But that is a very small error, certainly, with everything else going so beautifully. They're moving at about 3,700 miles an hour now and are plunging down toward the Earth's surface. The impression to them must be of very rapidly closing with the moon. They get to their lowest point just 14 minutes from now.
Snoop, Houston, there'll be no update on the phasing pad. Everything's looking really good.
Okay, good. We'll be picking up our landing radar test and taking pictures here, and it's a fantastic sight.
That's John Stafford, of course. Tom Stafford.
You do have different shades of browns and grays here. In like the volcanism, there's also a pure white near the edge, and at the bottom is black, and we've seen some large boulders that are blackish gray.
Roger, Snoop, we copy.
Man has never been so close to the moon. Few men, of course, have been to the moon, but in 2 flights, this is the closest. Will remain such until
over the Smythe
man lands there, perhaps in July. They have about an hour and 5 minutes here in which they will be in touch with the Earth before they disappear on the far side again. During this time, they will reach that low point. They will get that good look at the landing site. And then a few minutes after that, at 5:47, they will fire that descent propulsion system engine again, this time to speed them up so that they will go into a high orbit 224 miles out on the far side of the moon next time.
Houston, can you see them down there among the boulders? Over.
I saw them about 14 miles, but then I turned this thing over to the CMC to let it do an auto maneuver, and it lost them.
Right.
It's John Young from
I
Charlie
was
Brown.
tracking them just manually. I don't see them anymore. I'm going to let it update it with a little radar, a little range, and see if that brings it in.
Roger, Charlie Brown, we copy out.
In other words, John Young's going to use his radar and his computers to get aligned with the lunar module and then see if he can see them out the window again. It must be very hard to see down there against the moon and at the distance that they are apart at this time. John Young, 69 miles high. They at this point must be around.
Hello, Houston, this is Snoop. It looks like this landing radar is doing real good.
Roger, Snoop. We roger that. Over.
That's one of the main tests of this flight, as to whether that landing radar does work well.
We're on the lock on here, even early.
see the landing gear deployed there.
And straight up ahead, you can see we're going to go from the highlands over into the Maury area.
In other words, they're just passing over the last range of the large craters, mountains, into the Mare Tranquility, Sea of Tranquility.
Right, Snoop, over.
We're inclined to call it Mare Tranquillitatis. It's Mare by the Earthmen's lingo, and properly so, I would assume. The Sea of Tranquility, one of the large, reasonably flat areas, almost desert-like areas, broken by just a few of these craters, pits, that have come either from volcanic action or from meteorite impact. The landing area is at the far end of the Sea of Tranquility, giving them a chance to swoop over the comparatively flat areas to make their landing on Apollo 11. At 50,000 feet, they are well above the highest ranges of the mountains and crater rims of the moon's surface. And if all goes well, should be in no danger of impacting any of them, crashing into them.
Houston, I got the ascent batteries connected at this time. Roger, we see that. Thanks, Snoop, over.
Snoopy.
There were so many things to do in such a short time.
Gene Cernan reporting that they're pretty busy.
Coming up on 70 degrees east longitude now.
Snoop, Houston, your ascent batteries look good. Out.
Roger.
They're just about now over an area called the Mare Spumans. Over to their right is the large Mare Crisium, and over to the left, the huge crater Langrenus, which we got a good picture of last night in their first television transmission. We do not have television on this pass. The command pilot, John Young.
It looks like we're getting so close. All we have to do is put the sail hook down and we're there.
John Young, the command pilot, is too busy for television at this time.
Hey, Snoop, Air Force guys don't talk that way.
Well, I've been flying F-4. That's one on the one time. Even though it's an Air Force base. Okay, we're coming right over to the edge of the Maury now. We're really smoothed out here compared to...
All right, Snoop, we have you, should be approaching San Tarantius anytime soon.
Roger.
Okay, Houston, I got him in the optic now. Hey, great show. Fantastic. Hey, great show, Charlie Brown.
Thank golly, John Young was able to pick them up again. He's looking at them, eyeballing them. You heard Mission Control tell them they're just approaching the Sea of Tarantius now, one of the smaller areas, just before the Sea of Tranquility.
We can tell that this area is definitely lower than that highland area. This is the whole general area.
Okay, Snoop, could you coming up on expected surface washout? Can you comment on that, over?
Their onboard computer showed that 10.58 miles, or 55,440 feet would be their low point. A backup computer calculates it at 9.89 miles, which is almost precisely on their path as predicted.
I bet it looks like they're really hauling the mail. Huh? Didn't do anything. Surprisingly enough, Charlie, it really doesn't look like we're moving too fast down here. It's a very nice, pleasant pace. Right.
The practice is exactly like when Cal Beach is just like we went out and practiced the other morning in Florida as far as the Rowdy Perry made us about the same.
Copy, Snoop, out. Looks like we're coming up on my side on Ferrantes G, and I believe Tom's got Ferrantes H right there on his side. Things come out of the horizon differently. They seem to come over the horizon and be much closer to you down here than up there at 60 miles. And again, the craters in this area are craters that are dug out of the surface, and not craters that are flowing back from the surface at high rims. They're very low flat rims.
They should be at this point.
You're dropping out. Your voice faded out. We're standing by.
They should be at this point just 4 minutes from their lowest point, 3 minutes.
43 minutes, 20 seconds.
3 minutes from their low point, and they should be just coming over the Sea of Tranquility now. Should be about 270 miles at this point from the landing site. They should be about 270 miles at this point from the landing site.
Your cerebel's not tracking too closely. Could you peek us up on the signal strength, over?
This is this altitude, the volume is still fairly smooth as far as overall footprint.
Snoopy Houston said something about tracking the thing on the signal string or something. Tell me again what you want them to do there, Houston. Roger, Snoop. We're getting data dropout. It's not like we got some. We're coming on Apollo Ridge. Roger, we copy on Apollo Ridge. Checking on my right.
Unfortunately, perhaps because of their proximity to the moon, we're having communications troubles now. You can barely hear their voices there. Not really identify what they're saying.
Apollo Ridge is at 42 degrees east longitude.
Hello, Snoop. Houston, if you read, can you try tweaking up the high gain and signal strength, over?
42 degrees east longitude on the moon. Is right at the beginning of the Sea of Tranquility. They passed the last of the major ranges, although they will have one just a little under them and to the left, just before they get to the landing site by about 100 miles, 200 miles from the landing site.
Houston, if you read, have Snoopy tweak up the high gain. We're not reading him at all, over.
largest of these craters that they're going over at this point are about 20 miles across.
Snoopy, Houston wants you to tweak up the high gain. They're not reading you.
The pitted areas you see now are nothing like that in size. Probably something less than a mile. The smaller ones measured in feet.
Snoopy, Charlie Brown, over. Houston, Snoopy said they can't hold you on the high gain. Roger, stand by.
So Charlie Brown has his communications all right with Snoopy, but we're not hearing the lunar module. It is now right at this point, at its low point. According to the calculations, the computers, it should be right now just about 10 miles over the moon's surface. By its orbital path into which it inserted itself. Right over it, he said.
Okay, TP. Now we're coming up to Bear Mountain, right ahead of us. And you should have masculine A. You have a big crater masculine A right there, right on the edge of our straight front of you, now straight in front of you on the left. There's Lonesome Mesa right here. Masculine A. Houston, I don't know whether you're reading us, but this is the best we can do.
Snoop, we ring you. We're standing by. To you, Houston, but... Snoopy, understand by.
Okay, we're beaming side one. No, I'm getting that. Let me see if I can pick up. And I've got Prismarina A out here. I've got Prismarina A right here. Figure sheet up. Yeah, and I tell you, we are low. We are close, babe. This is like it. And it really looks pretty smooth down there, surprisingly enough. And Prismarina A has huge boulders all around the rim of it, falling on the inside and outside. Okay, I've got masculine right here off my right side. We're coming up on Boot Hill, which is very easy to distinguish. And masculine, and I see the craters that are going to lead us right into the landing site. We've got New Island on the left, just past Boot Hill, and we're coming up. I got Wash Basin just off my right arm. Very easily distinguishable. Tom ought to have Sidewinder Rail coming up on the left. Give me that, Jim. Here it comes. Don't go to Central 1140. Yeah.
A couple of excited astronauts. You can't blame them. Calling out the details, many of these are code names in the Apollo program.
Okay, I've got Diamondback. Diamondback Rail is very easy to see. These rails look like they may be as much as a couple hundred feet deep and very smooth. The surface actually looks very smooth, like a very wet clay, but smooth with the exception of the bigger craters. Oh, Tom, let me get a picture of these rails. Diamondback. Broad one in the rail, covered on the edges. It's flat, smooth at the bottom. The edges are definitely rounded. Doesn't look like the sides are upturned. Okay, I've got Pokey up there on the left. We're coming into the right, Jake. The best description I can give you of these rails is of a dry river out in New Mexico or Arizona someplace. Okay, here we are coming up on the right.
RTCC controllers from Computer Soup, let's evaluate the displays. Make sure that you don't have any displays up that you don't require.
Masculine G.
Dynamics, Computer Soup, can you let your checkout monitor go?
Okay, we just went over failure number 12.
module now should be slowly on the way back up. It has reached its low point, Paracynthian, about 5 minutes ago.
Houston, request down voice backup. Over.
RTCC controllers from Computer Soup, let's evaluate the displays. Make sure that you don't have any displays up that you don't require. Computer Soup, can you let your checkout monitor go?
The lunar module now should be slowly on the way back up. It has reached its low point, Paracynthian, about 5 minutes ago.
Houston, request down voice backup. Over. Snoopy, Houston wants you to go to down voice backup. Over.
It's John Young relaying
That's
word.
where he is. He's in down voice backup.
Word to Snoopy to go to an alternate communications link. Down voice means the transmission from the spacecraft to the ground. Up voice is transmission from the ground to the spacecraft. Here on a mosaic of the moon surface taken from earlier photographs, we can point out where the spacecraft is at this moment. It's just passed over the landing site just a moment ago. It's now coming back to this ridge of hills and is on the way back up in.
Okay, Charlie Brown, Houston, over. Go ahead, over. All right, we've had a complete data dropout with Snoop. Okay, Roger. Pass them on. We got 9 minutes to burn, getting the attitude, and they're go for phasing. Over.
9 minutes is the point at which they will fire the
Houston says you go for phasing.
descent propulsion system engine again.
8.5 minutes now. I want to get you in the attitude. Snoop, Charlie Brown, do you read?
This shows another advantage of Charlie Brown being up there 69 miles higher, 59 miles higher to be precise. He's able to relay communications.
Oh, I tell you, man, that's something. Okay. Oh, look at that. If I don't have any more... What happened to us? Go. I don't know why.
Snoop, Houston, we're reading you about 3 by now. We're counting the 8 minutes to the burn. Over.
Roger, we're going to phase the attitude.
Roger, and you go for the burn.
Yeah, you can imagine the position we can see these things pitch way down like looks like they're not very far above us.
They assume the attitude now in our simulation here.
Make sure you get your helmet and gloves on. I went 1530. We're all good there again.
For their next firing of the descent propulsion system engine. They'll fire it for quite a long time, 3/4 of a minute, 42 seconds to be exact, to give them an extra 133 mile/hour speed, which will boost them out to 224 miles above the moon's surface on the far side.
What's your attitude, Dave? Oh, it's getting dark. Okay, I thought we were pointing up in the air. No, hurry up and get this burn.
We've heard some excited astronauts exclaiming over the sights they're seeing as they pass over the moon's surface. Began with Stafford commenting on the huge boulders, and then some...
We've been down among them, babe.
Says we're down among them.
Oh, we got to start doing that earlier. Ron, you read me? I'm reading. You read me? Yeah. Okay, you guys, give it to him. Oh, okay, you can go in the 40.
Tom Stafford, and everything's on the board, meaning presumably all the...
ground, they're going to P40 now. Roger, we copy them, Taliban. Thanks so much.
All the readouts on their panel are correct.
Okay.
They are, of course, in the left side of that spacecraft you see on our simulation.
78 in there, baby.
We're 5 minutes away now from that burn, the firing of their engine to go into that high orbit. I think I heard John Stafford say a little while ago that his camera was not working. They'd had trouble with it before. Should be certainly a shame if there's still pictures of this pass over the moon were not usable if they didn't get them.
The thermiac is good for a takeover. The action is good for a takeover. Okay, let me open and close this breaker. Okay. Okay, TP, we gotta get them out of first. Engine gimbal enable. Engine gimbal enable. Throttle net. Throttle, fill it there. Throttle control auto. Throttle control is auto. Manual throttle commander. Go. Balance couple on. Go.
You hear a typical pilot's checklist.
Go.
Cernan reading off the checklist and Tom Stafford confirming it in preparation for their
Push button's all reset.
preparation for the firing of the engine.
Control, deck of power closed, and AELD closed. Okay, staff control, deck of power closed, and AELD closed. Okay, EPS inverter number 2 closed. That's over there. No, it isn't. EPS inverter number 1 closed. I'm sorry. You got it? Yep. Okay, engine override coming closed.
We're very rarely privileged to listen into this kind of a pilot checklist.
Abort. Stage coming closed.
Same sort of thing that pilots of any transport aircraft go through before takeoff.
Elevator go is less than 5. Well, RCS is a 0-3 match. If elevator go is less than 25 but greater than 5, we got a stage at RCS to 0. Yep. If elevator go is greater than 25, we got a stage at Hampton to 0, okay? Now, if we have to go to X or F, I got the staging procedures and everything right here. Yep. If they have to burn it, if we stage, we'll stage it, burn it at Ag, and go. If we burn the acid in, we'll burn it in Ag.
Should be just 2 minutes now before they fire that engine. After this firing, we'll have about 37 more minutes.
Okay, 146 to go. Right phase is 176 feet per second.
146 to go, 1 minute 46 seconds before firing of the engine. They'll have about 37 minutes still in communication with the ground before the loss of signal as they go behind the moon again. They'll soar out to 224 miles high behind the moon, come back, and again reach that low point, this time about 11 miles high at 7:33 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And that's about an hour and 45 minutes from now, a little more than that, hour 50.
Babe, the eggs is looking good there, drag attitude. In good shape. Okay, and I'll trim out the burn. Total burn time is 40 seconds. Okay, I'm ready. After 99, proceed. Degullage. We're burning, John. We're burning.
There it is.
Nope, Houston, we copy. It's the gimbal light. Forget about it, babe. Got an engine gimbal light, but everything's good. Still burning. 149 to go. Okay, throttling up. 127 to go. How's the attitude? 107 to go. 86 to go. 40 to go. 20 to go. Step down. Okay, Tom, there's 1.5 feet per second. Let me null it out. Let's go to Ag's attitude hole. Ag's attitude hole.
As we mentioned before, that's a throttleable engine. Goes all the way from about 1,000 to 9,000 pounds of thrust.
And mid-deadband. That's good. Let it go right there. That's good. That's got it, babe. That's got it. Let me get those. +2, +0.2, -0.5, and -0.9. The burn's good, John. Roger, understand the burn's good. And Snoop, Houston, we copy your residuals, over.
The burn went just as planned, apparently. They called it good.
Real good. The burn was steady. We had the descent quality light on twice. We had the engine gimbal light on, the master wind, and all those good things. Then we just pressed right on, over.
Roger, we copy. Verb 82. Enter. Okay, Connie. Okay, Houston, we're in a 190.8 by 11.8. Roger, we copy.
Those are the nautical miles of this new orbit.
Verify your engine arm off. Stop quantity off.
190.8 by 11.8.
Okay, you can let me take my helmet and gloves off.
It was scheduled to be
Snoop, Houston, we missed the verb 79.
195 by 9.2, so they will not go quite as far out
Okay, we got it. Thanks,
as had been planned, and they will come in a little bit higher than planned.
Snoop, Houston, the comm is really great, and we got all our data now. During the good part, though, for you were way down in the mud, but everything is
Copacetic now, over.
Charlie, I fought with the S-band antenna to get it for you, but the best I could do, and I got your strongest strength on me when we were down there, and then after we passed, I gave S-band another try, and we came in good because I thought you'd want to see the burn.
We appreciate it. Thanks much, Snoop. It looked great.
Those nautical miles.
And Houston, this is Snoopy. You'd like to know that we've taken so many pictures that both cameras have failed on us. Over.
Roger, we copy.
Both cameras have failed. So presumably we will not get pictures of that pass over the low point, nor on the second pass. They have two cameras aboard, but according to Tom Stafford, that's sad news that both failed. As they passed there low over the moon and reported back to us what they saw, this was not just a Cook's tour of the surface. It was important that they report what they saw in case disaster overtook them. At least they would have that report on the ground.
The hack needles give you a hack on where it is. On 180 and pitch down 90, I know that. Okay, Tom, clean up your breaker panel. Pings landing radar open. Staff control deck of power open. AELD open.
That exact quote a moment ago was, we've taken so many pictures that both cameras have failed, so maybe they got something before the failure. However, they reported the failure of one of the cameras that we know before they reached the low point, so it's questionable what they did get. Maybe presumptuous, however, to say that they got none.
Okay, how about RCS? What do we got quantity-wise?
The actual orbit by statute miles that they have achieved now with this burn, according to the first reading on the computers, is 13.5 miles at the low point, 227 miles at the high point. So when they come around this time, they will be 13.5 miles high. They now still have 32 minutes before loss of signal. We expect to hear some more from them on this pass. CBS News color coverage of the flight of Apollo 10 will continue in a moment.
If you like this video, please press the subscribe button to subscribe to this channel, and also give it a thumbs up. You can also be notified when I post further videos on the anniversary of this flight and on the anniversary of the flight of Apollo 11 coming up in July. You can also support this channel with a donation by using the link in the description.